Hello everyone, my name is Paul Ang, and we'll be presenting part 2 of this webinar series, Firewall and its applications using Draytek routers. In today's agenda, the topics that we are going to look at are how does Draytek Firewall works, IP filter, content filtering. Under this category are app enforcement, URL filter for HTTP websites, web content filter, DNS filter for HTTPS websites, object base. Under this category are IP object and group, IPv6 object and group, service type object and group, keyword object and group, file extension object. We will now start by looking at how does Draytek Firewall works. When a packet is forwarded by Draytek router, it will be checked by firewall filters in sequence. First is IP filter. This is where the firewall will make its decision based on the source, destination IP addresses, protocol, and port numbers. After IP filter, it will proceed to content filters, where packets are scanned according to the application being used, like URL, web content, and DNS. If the packet does not match on IP filter and content filters, the last checking is the default rule of the firewall. We will use this diagram to further explain Draytek firewall process and sequence. In this first scenario, the packet that is forwarded by the router matches the IP filter. The firewall's decision is to pass the packet. After the packet passes IP filter, proceed to content filters. If the packet does not match inside the content filter, the packet passes and reaches the internet. In this second scenario, the packet again matches the IP filter, and then the firewall's decision is to pass the packet. It will now proceed to content filters. It matches WCF filter, and the firewall's action is to block the packet, so the packet is discarded. In this third scenario, the packet did not match IP filter and content filter rules. As a result, the firewall will reach to the next filter rule that would match the packet until it will reach the default rule of the firewall, and then it will make its decision based on the default rule. In this scenario, there was no match, thus the default rule is applied. The default rule is to set to pass the packet. The last scenario is when the packet matches the IP filter and the action is blocked, so the packet is being discarded. Now we will discuss additional IP filter actions. Pass if no further match, block if no further match. If a packet matches the IP filter rule and the action is set to pass if no further match or block if no further match, the firewall will match it on the next filter rule. If there is no match, it will go further until it will reach the last filter rule. If a packet matches the IP filter of another rule, the router will apply to the new rule. In this example, the packet matches the last filter rule. If the packet does not match any other rules in the same filter set, the router will progress to content filtering of the original rule if the action is set to pass if no further match. But if the action is set to block if no further match, the packet will be discarded. We will now start looking at IP filters. Draytek router can filter the packets based on the information in their IP headers, such as source IP, destination IP, protocol, and the port number. IP filter can be configured under Firewall menu, Filter Setup. In this slide, you can see the two default filters that we discussed before in part 1 of this series. In creating a filter rule, we will select Filter Set To. Under Filter Set To, we can select Rule 2 to create our required filter. Select Check to enable the filter rule. Enter comments that corresponds to what the rule is going to do. For this presentation, we enter Block All. From source IP, we can select any address, single address, range address, subnet address, and group objects. For this presentation, we select range address from 192.168.1.10 to 192.168.1.20. For destination IP, we select any address. And for the service type, we select TCP destination port 80 and source port is from 1 to 65,535. And lastly, we select filter action as block immediately. This is the result of our rule that we recently applied to the router. The computers that belongs to the IP range 192.168.1.10 to 192.168.1.20 cannot access all websites that use port 80, while it can access other services, for example, FTP and file sharing that uses port 21 and 445. These are the actions that you can set for each filter rules. Block immediately. Packets matching the rule will be dropped immediately. Pass immediately. Packets matching the rule will be passed immediately. Block if no further match. A packet matching the rule and does not match further rules will be dropped. Pass if no further match. A packet matching the rule and does not match further rules will pass through. The next topic is app enforcement. App enforcement helps us to block applications like instant messaging, P2P, protocols, and others on the LAN or WAN networks. App enforcement profile is under Content Security Management or CSM. To create a profile, you need to select a profile number. Under the profile, you can see 4 categories: instant messaging, peer-to-peer, protocol, and others. You can easily enable those applications by selecting Select All. The next menu option is the app signature upgrade. It is not necessary to have an app license activated to use app enforcement in firewall rules, but it is recommended because this will keep the app database up to date. Thus, to make sure app enforcement works correctly, App License Auto Update, which is now supported by Vigor 2925 series, Vigor 2860 series, and Vigor 2760D series, are for Vigor routers to upgrade the app module automatically. You have the options there to set the router for auto update. App License is free service. You can activate it if the router has been registered to a MyVigor account. To activate the service, we go to CSM, App Signature Upgrade, and click Activate. Log into the MyVigor account and click on Trial. Read the notice and follow the steps to activate the license. Another topic is URL filter for HTTP websites. To block a website, we may use the URL filter. URL filter will check the HTTP packets and find out the URL that the LAN client is requesting. Network administrator may set up URL filter to block or pass the HTTP traffic that contains certain keywords in the URL, thus to control the access to specific websites. URL content filter is also under CSM. We will apply a filter rule for websites containing keywords in the URL. In this example, is block any sites that contains Hotmail. We name it Hotmail and the content is also Hotmail. So we created a keyword object from object settings of the router. Under URL Content Filter Profile, we enter the profile name, block Hotmail, and the keyword object Hotmail. And then we will select the priority, either URL access control first. Once the URL content filter has been defined, it is then applied to the firewall rules as shown here. For further information, we have an application notes in our knowledge base that covers various explanations of using URL content filter. Another option under CSM is Web Content Filter. The Web Content Filter can be used to block whole categories of websites, example sports and online shopping. The Web Content Filter does require an annual subscription, but the routers do come with a 30-day trial so users can try it before they decide to buy the license. When you select WCF from the menu, you can see the following information. On the top is the license information, the start date, and the expire date. On the next, which is highlighted on red, is the profile table when you can group each category into profiles. You can also select the required cache to use. Also, customize a message to display to the users when they try to access a blocked website. WCF relies on database maintained by Siren. Siren is a third-party cloud-based internet security company. Siren updates its database regularly so users can have a peace of mind. If you find the particular website is not classified correctly, you can visit the URL on the screen. In the slide, you can see an example of where you can enter the mistakenly classified URL. Here you can see some of the categories that you can select when you acquire WCF license. WCF have a scheduling features that will allow administrators to set a time and date to when to block and allow access from a certain website. Here in our example, are parents setting the schedule for children to access social media at a specific time. We can also verify the traffic coming from the WCF in our syslog utility software. This is for monitoring if WCF blocks the right website. Now we will look at DNS filter for HTTPS websites. DNS filter can be applied for URL content filter and web content filter under DNS filter local settings. This is specially designed to block encrypted websites like HTTPS. The traditional way to block HTTPS websites is to determine all the IP addresses of the website. You would probably spend more than time to determine all the IP addresses used by Facebook. To block Facebook in a traditional way is to create a filter rule for each IP range or subnet that Facebook uses. As you can see here, under the DNS filter profile page, there are two options for creating a DNS filter: DNS filter profile table and DNS filter local settings. The difference between DNS filter profile and DNS filter local setting is when the LAN clients are using external DNS server, which means the DNS queries are sent to WAN interface. Then we should use DNS filter profile. While DNS filter local settings is used when LAN clients are using the Draytek Vigor router as a DNS server, which means DNS queries are sent to the router directly. To verify the DNS server if you are using an external DNS or the Vigor router as DNS, you can use the command ipconfig/all in the command prompt of Windows system. As you can see in this slide, we are using an external DNS server, which is the Google DNS as primary and also secondary. For this slide, you can see that we are using Vigor router as our DNS server 192.168.1.1. Now we will look into IP object and group. Here you can see the menu options under Object Settings. It includes IP Object, IP Group, IPv6 Object, and IPv6 Group. Here we can create an IP object name accounting and select the address type as range address from 192.168.1.40 to 192.168.1.50. We can also select different address type aside from range address. It can be a single address, subnet address, MAC address, and group and object. We can also group the IP object according to its classification. For this example, we group admin and accounting and name it as confidential. After creating the IP object, we can now use it in configuring filter rules. In the filter rule, we can edit the destination IP, select address type as group and object, and then IP group as confidential. For IPv6 object and group, the process is the same. The only difference is we use IPv6 addresses. Now we will look into service type object and group. Here you can see the menu options. Under object settings, it includes service type object, service type group. In this slide, we can see how to create a service type object. The name of our object is web server. The protocol is TCP. The source is from 1 to 65,535 and the destination port is 880. So to access this server, you need to specify the port 880. We can also group the service type object according to its function or services. For this example, we group web server and RDP and name it as outside services. After creating the service type object, we can now use it in configuring filter rules. In the filter rule, we can edit the service type, select address type as group and object, and then service group as outside services. Now we will look into key object group. Here you can see the menu options under object settings. It includes keyword object, keyword group. In creating a keyword object, you need to select a name that can be easily be identified to what this object is. In this example, we name it block Facebook and then the content of the keyword, which is facebook.com. We can also group the keyword objects that we created. In this example, we group Facebook and YouTube and name it as social media. Now we can use the keyword object that we created on the previous slide under CSM menu and then URL content filter profile. The last topic that we are looking at is file extension object. Here we can see the menu options for file extension object. It is under object settings. Just like creating other types of object, you need to select a name that represents the category. In this example, we name it WebIMG because this is an image that we want to pass or block from a website. File extension objects can also be used for URL content filter, specifically under web feature. In this example, we try a profile that restricts access to part of the websites that loads the .png file as an image. Now we will present a video which provides a demonstration of creating a firewall filter and objects. The video will go for about 7 minutes. Hello everyone. Welcome to Draytek Australia and New Zealand. In this video, we are going to configure Vigor router to only allow RDP access from one source IP using objects. As you can see in the network diagram, only my PC can access PC1 remotely using RDP. The first step is to configure port redirection. Port redirection translates a private IP and port to public IP and port so that PC1 can be accessed outside the network. Use your internet browser to access the router. Make sure that you are connected to the internet. Go to NAT and port redirection and then select the first index. Enable the first index, enter RDP as service name. Public port as 514, private IP address which is PC1's IP address, and private port as RDP port. The second step is to create objects. Go to Object Settings and IP Object. Select the first index and create an IP object for my PC. And then select the second index to create an IP object for PC1. Lastly, we will create service type object for RDP port. The third step is to create firewall filters. Go to Firewall and then Filter Setup. Select the Filter Set To and Filter Rule To. Enable this filter and name it Block All, and then select the direction from WAN to LAN. Now we will use the IP object that we created. For source IP is any, and for destination IP select PC1 object. And for service type select RDP object. This filter rule will block all RDP traffic going to PC1 if no other filter rule will match this rule. The second rule that we are going to create is to allow only my PC to access PC1 remotely using RDP. Enable the filter rule and name it Allow RDP, and then the direction will be from WAN to LAN. For source IP, we use my PC object and destination IP, we use PC1 object. And then service type, we use RDP object. The last step will be testing. We will now launch the remote desktop connection from my PC and enter the public IP address and port of PC1. As you can see, we are now accessing PC1 remotely using RDP. Now we are going to use a different computer to test our firewall policy. As you can see, this computer is blocked by our firewall. Thank you for watching the video. For more information, please visit our website www. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you wish to watch again, just visit the link shown here on this slide. This is the end of our presentation. For more information, please visit our website at www.draytek.com.au, or you may email us on sales@draytek.com.au. Today, I have given you the last part of this series, Firewall and its applications on Draytek routers. And this includes how does Draytek Firewall works, IP filter, content filtering, and object-based. Thanks for taking part in our presentation, and we hope to catch up with you in our next webinar in the coming weeks. Thank you, and bye for now.